In collaboration with the University of Rio Grande Community College, and the Ohio State University South Centers, we proudly present a series of different broadcast TV and radio shows that highlight different aspects of small businesses. Our co-hosts include Ryan Mapes, Endeavor Center Manager and Program Leader with the Ohio State University South Centers, Mike Thompson, Director of the Instructional Design and Media Services at the University of Rio Grande, and Brad Babst, Small Business Development Center Director with the Ohio State University South Centers. Small business owners and guests discuss information that is strictly business.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome to Strictly Business. It's always sketchy at the beginning of the show.
It takes us a while to get going.
Okay, anyway, I think we're going to talk to a guy from a bank today. And I think we're going to concentrate on cards that we use.
Yes, debit cards, credit cards. He's got a lot of information.
Because there's lots of new technologies out there now. It's we've got like Apple Pay, and I've heard it was a Samsung. Different people are coming up with different ways to pay bills. You got debit cards, credit cards. Everybody's got a wallet full of stuff.
That's right.
And also, how are you going to keep all this stuff secure?
That's right.
That's the main thing, so they don't steal your money and your information.
Yep. And it'd be good, too, for business owners to know how some of their policies may affect customer transactions and,
right.
And how bank policies can affect what they can do as well.
Right, because on certain types of transactions, either the business or the person is charged some fees.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Well, I think our guest today, we have Tony Staley with us. He is the assistant cashier and works in product and business development with the Ohio Valley Bank. And he's with us today to shed some light on how these transactions and policies and some of the procedures work. So thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And hopefully I can give you some good information.
We're sure you will. So how long have you been at the bank? You might tell us a little bit about your history and work history and how you got there and kind of what you're responsible for at the bank.
Sure. I started at the bank almost 13 years ago. It'll actually be 13 years in January, this coming January. And I started as a teller, and I moved from our teller department to our marketing department and spent quite a few years. I can't say exactly, I don't know exactly how many years it was there, but I moved from our marketing area into a new area of the bank at the time. It was social media. I was supervising our social media efforts, and then from there I went to product development. So I was looking for new technologies that the bank can go out and bring to our customers, mostly customer facing, like mobile banking and mobile deposit, things like that. And from there I still do that, and I also do our business sales and support. So I go out to our current business customers and sell them our complementary products that they might make their lives easier, and then support them if they have any issues with those.
Good. So it sounds like we got a lot of good information coming up for to get out to the public here.
Right. What other, banks have products. You know, people don't think initially of banks having products, but they do have products. Or different ways of serving you, maybe it might be. So what kind of, say like cards do you service? You have credit cards, debit cards?
Absolutely. We do have credit cards and debit cards. We have those for our basic consumers. So anyone that comes in and opens an account, we have a debit card or credit card option for them. And then we have business debit and credit cards as well. So cards that are specially suited to those business owners.
Sure. How are those different than just a consumer?
Well, our
debit?
They're tied to different accounts. So we have multiple consumer accounts, and then we have business accounts as well. The biggest difference would be in our credit cards. Our business customers, we offer a what we call a payables card, and it earns extra incentives. It earns cash back. And it's not meant to be used as a credit card, though. It's actually meant to be used as a payables card. They pay their bills each month and then they pay it off, and that's the purpose of the card. And they earn 1% cash back on that card.
1%. That's depending on how many transactions you have. That could, or how much the transactions are. That could be a lot of money.
Definitely.
So.
Now, earlier you had talked about a new technology that's coming to these cards, right? Some kind of a chip. Is that
Yes.
coming to both the credit and the debit
Yes,
side?
yes. It's the EMV chip cards.
What's the EMV stand for?
It's Euro, MasterCard, Visa. And basically what that does is it puts a chip in the card, and that chip uses a lot of numbers and cryptography and things that are beyond me, to be honest. But it validates the card is the actual card that should be being used. Okay. So your viewers will probably know that if they've got one of those and they go to certain places, they're going to say, you can't swipe that, you got to put it in. And so that's the chip card. And
is it safer?
It provides an extra layer of security to the customer, yes.
Okay. But I know as we talked at lunch, there is or is no deadline. You might explain on how the banks are transitioning into the chip cards.
Is this all banks?
All card issuers.
Okay.
So there was not a deadline. Last October of 2015, there was what was called a liability shift.
Okay.
And at that point, before the liability shift, the issuer, the card issuer, so in our instance the bank, was responsible for any card fraud that would happen at the place of business.
Right.
We were liable for that card fraud. And as an incentive to get those business owners to transition into chip readers, because that's an extra expense for them. They have to buy new card terminals that will allow them to take the chip cards. As an incentive to get them to do that, I guess we could call it an incentive, the government mandated that as of that time, if the business owner did not take a chip card, was not able to accept a chip card, but the card issuer had issued a chip card, the liability now shifts to the business owner. So if someone comes in and they have, it's a fraudulent transaction, and they have a chip card, but the business owner isn't capable of taking it, they're responsible now.
Okay. Because that's their extra layer of security.
Yes. But if they are able to take it, everything remains the same, and they don't hold that liability.
Sure.
How much does that hit a bank as far as, I guess if I go out and buy something and maybe it's a bad product or I don't get the products I need, the charge comes back to the bank and the bank just swallows that? Is that the deal?
In that situation, that is, the merchant is not providing the service that is expected, so the bank would, or the customer would try to recover that from the merchant. But if it's fraudulent, the bank would eat that fraudulent cost.
Okay. How much of a thing is that? Do you see a lot of it?
We see our share. I don't think we see as much as other places, especially geographically speaking, other areas of the country. But we see our share.
Question, this is a technical question, but okay, so you go to the gas station and the pumps where you can slide your debit card in and out, and I know that it's been in the news that there's these readers that people will insert in there, and it'll, get your bank account information from there. For gas pumps and things, would it have to be chip accessible as well? So would they have to?
They actually had a different liability shift date, and that is October of 2017, I believe.
Okay. So by that time, we should be able to use those type of cards in pumps.
Yes, and that's actually a concern for gas stations because currently, as you're well aware, you have to do it fast.
Yep.
If you leave it in too long, it doesn't work.
Right.
Well, it's a complete 180 from what they're used to, because with the chip cards, you leave it in until it says, okay, you're done, and then you pull it out. So that a lot of gas station owners and companies are concerned about that, just a shift in the muscle mentality that their customers have.
Right.
I know that from experience. The first time I got a new credit card, the first time that I tried to use it with the chip, it didn't work very well. They had to tell me how to use it.
Now, the amount of time that you leave it in there for, is that the time that it is communicating with the bank?
It's communicating with its own, yes.
It's inside of it?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if when you put it in there, it tells the bank this card is being used, and then the bank communicates back with the reader and says it's good.
Those are some nuts and bolts that might be a little above my pay
Okay.
grade, but that is the time that it's working. It's doing its job at that point.
Right.
And a lot of the major card issuers are working on ways to decrease the amount of time that will take. So hopefully within the next year or so, that time that you have to sit there and stare at your card and wait for it to say ready, remove card, is going to decrease.
Okay.
How about in the what was it, the night machine or whatever?
ATM?
ATM, that's it.
They're capable as well, and it should follow the same rules.
Right now?
I don't think they're all capable right now. It's a
Okay.
rollout. Just like the merchants are rolling out terminals, banks are rolling out machines,
Yeah.
and
They're
banks
probably
are
not
rolling out
cheap, are
cards. No, this is all a fairly good expense for
Right,
everybody.
Just like when all the TV stations went to HD, widescreen stuff, they had to replace all the equipment because it was all different, analog to digital and everything.
Yep.
It's a large thing to swallow.
Yep. So during that rollout period, it would be either one works or one doesn't work. Well, for an ATM machine, for example.
Well, just like with the terminals and the merchants,
terminals.
you can swipe if you don't have a chip card, and you can use a chip card if you do. It should be the same,
Okay.
at least during that
So-
time period.
And the chip card does have a swipe on it
Yeah,
too.
they all still
Okay,
have
I guess that was
what's
my
called the
question.
mag stripe
Right.
on the back.
So it could be used either
Mm-hmm.
way. That makes sense. Okay. So what are some other services that I know we've talked a little bit about mobile banking
Mm-hmm.
at lunch and just some of the services that might go along with that. And
Yeah.
How about taking the picture of the check?
Yeah,
that's a good one.
that's a good one. It's very useful for those customers who maybe don't have a ton of checks because you have to take a picture of the front and the back. So if you've got hundreds of checks, you don't really want to do that.
Right.
But it is a very good product, and we of course have that.
Does that come with an app?
It does. iPhone, Android are your big ones. So typically, if a bank has that app, they are going to have the mobile deposit as well. Now, a lot of the times that is separate, so you might see some banks that have the basic app that they can log into and they can look at their transactions. They might even be able to make transfers, but they don't necessarily have the capability to deposit checks.
Sure.
Okay.
And that's just something that would be like uploaded to that, the image itself. And
Yeah.
then that's how I've always wondered how that technology works.
So
see
it takes a picture,
Yeah.
and it gets uploaded overnight
Right.
in nightly processing for the bank, and it will show up into your account depending on when you take the picture next day or
So very similar to imaging.
yeah. Mhm.
Or
Is that like a proof machine type of thing? Or is that too old a technology?
Might be too old.
Back when I was hanging out in the
Yeah,
back
it's-
rooms of banks,
Yeah. Well, I know.
where this checks comes through and it scans it and reads
Yeah,
the whole
similar.
Similar.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just embedded in a phone,
thing. Right.
so you can do it from wherever you are.
I wasn't sure if that was inserting this into that step.
It's a little different. It's not quite the same as those
Okay.
old proofing machines,
Right.
but it's a really good technology. It creates a convenience for the customer. We also have a business version of that, where for those businesses that do take more checks and they don't want to take a picture of the front, flip it over, take a picture of the back, and we use scanners for that. And we call that remote deposit capture. And
okay.
it allows the customer to have a scanner at their location and scan all their checks in, so they don't have to bring a deposit into
This would
the
be bank equipment, a bank issued scanner?
Yes.
Or, okay. Yep.
It's not just my photo scanner.
Not just a
I
flatbed
just send-
scanner.
Put down 5 different checks and.
Yeah, it's actually similar to what you would see if you went to a bank and saw the tellers working their work.
And all these services you just have to talk to your business services
Sure.
at the bank and.
Yep. Yes.
And
Usually you
determine
can
what's
ask
right for your
anyone at the
business.
bank, and they'll point you in the right direction.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So kind of switching gears just a little bit to the business side of things. If you have multiple employees, maybe direct deposit, things like that
Sure.
for your.
So what I find interesting, like I said, I've been with the bank almost 13 years, just to see the technology develop over that time. We've gone from people on Fridays, people will be coming in with their checks to cash or deposit or what have you. Now we offer the ability, and we have for a while, for a business owner to direct deposit into the employee's account, which a lot of people are very familiar with. But I think what's important to note is you don't have to be a large corporation to be able to make use of this. We can provide this service down to the smallest mom and pop store on Main Street. So it's accessible through our online banking. We actually have a business version of that we call cash management. And it gives them some extra, a business owner, some extra functionality, such as the ability to use automated clearinghouse, electronic funds transfer to direct deposit, and also have different auditing trails, so they can have different users accessing the same account, so they can see who's doing what at any given time.
What a time saver that could be for businesses. You don't
Definitely.
have to stop what you're doing, get all your deposits together. You don't have to write the checks out. You can
Save on paper.
save
It's
on
green.
paper. It's green.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I imagine, I don't know if your bank is a lot different than others, but you serve a very diverse population. You know, from everybody who's really tech savvy to Amish people, because you have a place to tie up a horse outside your bank.
This is true.
So you've got all types of people you serve, from the most simple to the more tech savvy.
And we try to be very aware of that, and we provide, as you said, the technology to those people that really want that technology. We have an advisory group. We call it our Gen Next group, and they're 20-somethings, 20 to 30. And one thing that I learned talking to them is they want to help themselves when they want to help themselves, and they want to be waited upon when they want to be waited upon.
Yeah.
So we strive
It's all about
to,
me.
right,
Yeah.
or whatever mood they're in at the time. So we strive to provide that to them in a way that, you know, we have a new branch in Barboursville, West Virginia, and when you walk in, you can turn left, and there's some machines that you can go and you can make deposits, cash checks, what have you, all by yourself. You turn right, and we have account services representatives that are there to help you with whatever you need. So that mentality of, you can help yourself if you want, or
Right.
we're here if you need us to.
Because sometimes you just like to talk to a person.
You do.
It's important. You know, that personal touch, that face-to-face contact is
Right.
very important.
Anything new and cool on the horizon?
Well, I guess you're asking the right person. I do quite a bit of that. I just got back from a conference in San Jose, California, looking at new cool stuff. And probably the coolest thing, while it didn't necessarily apply to what I'm doing with the bank, was, I'm sure you guys are aware of the VR, virtual reality, that's kind of coming around right now. So someone had built an investment system that uses virtual reality, and you can look.
Is it like one of those things where you put the phone, the cardboard deal?
It's exactly what it is.
Okay.
And you can look up to see how your stocks are doing over here. You can look down to see some personal information over here. So again, maybe not the most applicable to what I'm doing, but certainly it was impressive to look at.
Hopefully it's not sensitive enough that, you know, like you see in the auctions where you just twitch and it's like,
You bought something.
I bought something. Oh no.
Yeah,
You look at the wrong place and it's like, oh no, I emptied my account.
you sneeze and you've sold all your stock.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a prototype, so I'm sure they're working on it. But they had a lot of interesting things out there. It kind of gives me a gauge of what's
Yeah,
on
you're
the
in product
horizon.
development, so you're
Right. It's not necessarily always things that are ready right now,
Sure.
but it's very important, in my opinion, to be aware of what's coming maybe next year, so we can be prepared to jump, or we can just know if it's a good idea or not for us.
Are there other like phone technologies like Apple Pay or
Oh, sure.
things like that coming down, or
You know, there's there's different ones every day. They're very numerous. The one that's most impressive to me, it's been out for a while, but it's Samsung Pay, and that's because with Apple Pay, you have to have NFC in your iPhone, and the merchant has to have an NFC-enabled terminal, and NFC stands for Near Field Communication, and that's the tap. Tap
Are those
to pay,
extra
tap to share.
or hard to come by? Or
The terminals or the
Yeah,
phones?
terminals.
The terminals, if you bought a new terminal today, it would probably be NFC capable.
Okay.
If you have had your terminal for years, it's not. And that's the hesitation, because they've got these terminals, and the terminals aren't cheap. And so do I want to spend the money for this new tech, or do I want to just stick with what I've got? But Samsung Pay does not need that NFC capability. It essentially fools the terminal into thinking a card is being swiped, and that sounds kind of shady, I guess, but it's really not. It's just using this very intelligent technology to emulate a card swipe, and it's very impressive, and it works on over 90% of terminals that are out there right now, whereas Apple Pay works on, I don't want to throw a
Certain
number out,
vendors.
much smaller.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, I guess I was wondering, with that technology and the Apple Pay, and there's others, is this going to come down at some point where we have to agree on a standard, and this is going to work, and the rest of them have to go away? Like the TVs have a certain standard that, I was at the National Association of Broadcasters conventions back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they were still arguing about, lines per inch and all the, what standard are we going to go with? Is that going to happen with this technology?
I think it has to eventually, and that's to the benefit of the consumer.
Right.
That way they don't have to worry about, well, I've got an iPhone, but Samsung Pay is the one that really works, so what do I do? I think we are going to see a standard eventually. Now, a lot of people thought NFC was going to be that standard, and it really hasn't been to that extent. So when I say eventually, I mean eventually. It's going to be not this year, next year, but down the road, I think
That
we'll
just
have
comes
to
with
establish it.
An evolution.
Yeah.
And survival of the fittest, I guess.
Definitely.
In the business world.
I don't think it'll be Apple Pay.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a startling revelation. I do not think it will be Apple Pay that will be the standard.
So, I think it's called Square that you
Yes.
can plug into your
Right.
phone, swipe
I've got one of
cards.
those.
You do. How will the chip? Well, again,
Oh,
you can
right.
still. Are they coming out with that?
Square does have chip-capable readers. You have to
Okay.
pay for them, unlike with the current Square product that they just give you a reader. You do have to pay, I think it's $90 for the
okay.
reader. Now, you use Square. We have that also, so talk to me later.
So, a lot of the equipment we're talking about, is that available through the bank
Yeah.
for lease, or is it stuff that the business would have to go out and
with
purchase?
that particular item, the credit and debit card processing for the business, we actually have a partnership with another company. We've had it for years, since 1998, so it's a very good partnership. With most of the other things I've talked about, that's just coming through us talking to someone at our bank.
Okay. Yep. So if a business is listening to this and they think, wow, some of that stuff could really benefit what we're doing, make my life easier, what would be their next steps?
Well, they could come to any of our branches.
Call you, right?
Yeah, they could call me. I don't want to make it about, it's any community
Right.
bank. Most community banks offer these services. So if
Sure.
you go to your local bank, I do want to stress local. That's important to me.
Yeah.
You go to your local bank and ask about the services, and they should be able to help you. Everyone isn't going to be able to sign you up for whatever service we're talking about, but they should at least be able to point you in the right direction. So with us, they would be pointing the business customer to me.
Well, and it's probably, I'm going to guess that the services that we're talking about, they can be bundled like other, for
Package
example,
deals.
if you get, if you have an installment loan with us, and you open a checking account, we'll deduct 0.25% or
Yeah.
something. So, these.
A lot of these things are like that.
Yeah.
We'll work with the business customer to create the best package we can.
Sure.
That will benefit them the most.
Yeah, because I can see dollar signs to change.
Yeah.
And it's the cost of doing
a lot
business.
Of these are
it really
fees.
is.
Yeah, there are fees associated. Now, our online banking for business customers is a totally free product, and we have some other business products that are completely free.
Sure.
But yeah, you're right. Especially in the case of debit and credit card processing, the merchant is paying for that to happen. We're paying for that to happen. So there are fees involved. But like I said, we'll work with people to get the best package.
Yeah. If you didn't have that, you're going to miss a segment of your sales.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people don't carry cash or that much or whatever. So if you don't have the reader, I can't take this group of customers.
And there are local places that have not taken credit card for years or debit card for years, and I just didn't go there. And now they do all of a sudden, and I go there.
Yeah. Right.
Oh yeah, same.
I think
same
one of the
here.
local burger places was like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's as a customer or going into that retail place,
Right.
it's frustrating.
I always tell the business owner, if you're not going to lose business because you don't take credit or debit cards, a perfect example is, well, the place I get my hair cut. They don't, and I still go there because I like the people. They're
Right.
not losing business. They're not having customers come in all of a sudden and say, you don't take credit cards, so I'm going to go somewhere else.
They've got an
But
established.
it's not like
worry
you have
about
like
Yeah.
You know.
10, 15 different choices competing at the same time like
Right.
you do restaurants. You're going there because you value that service and you're willing to make that
Right.
trade-off.
But I do still think it is important, even though I say it's not quite as important for you if you are not losing customers. I have the mentality working for the bank that I want to provide every outlet I can for our customers to be able to do what they want with their money. So I want us to have the different payment systems that we've been talking about, the Apple Pay, the Samsung Pay, debit cards and credit cards back in the past. So because I have that mentality with the bank, I feel like a business customer should probably try to have that mentality for their customers as well. You don't want to inconvenience them. Even if they still come back to you, you don't want it to be an inconvenience.
Right. Yeah, and you know, from the bank standpoint, the more accounts or services that a client has, a customer has, I mean, they're more likely to be a lifetime client too.
Oh, yeah.
Which, you know, I've always said
People don't
banking
hop
is
around them.
relationships.
Yes.
It all boils down to relationships, and if they can
Right.
build that trust factor with, if it's your bank or which bank it is they work with, that very important. And
Absolutely.
yeah. So
So I guess the last thing I want to know, did you bring any samples?
Oh, they won't let
Money
me.
samples.
They don't let me into the vault. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, hopefully that's been informative about new and upcoming technologies. So thanks for watching Strictly Business, and we'll see you next month.